Hello everyone, how are you? Let's start our first lesson, the friction force. But before starting, let me tell you the meaning of the word. When we hit a force, we move a distance in a direction. This force may be positive, like positive 1 or positive 2 or positive 3, etc. or maybe equal 0. Let's see an example. If I move the box will move in a direction of the force. It will move a distance. This means force equal positive 1 or positive 2 or positive 3. But if I try to move the ball, it doesn't move. So in this case, the force will equal 0. So till now, I have positive force and I have force equal 0. In the same time, I have a negative 1. What is the negative 1? Firstly, let me tell you about Newton's third law. It is called action-reaction. This law says when two bodies interact, the force which body A exerts on body B, this force is called the action force, is equal in opposite direction to the force which body B exerts on body A. I can't understand. Let's see an example. If I have a bicycle, this bicycle will represent body and the road will represent body B. This bicycle or body A exert a force on body B, exert a force on the road and moving in the positive direction. So its force will the positive force. In the same time, the road exert a force on the body A. Again, the road, which is body B, exert a force on body A, which is the bicycle, and move in the opposite direction. So it will be a negative force. The action-reaction tells us that the negative force is equal to the positive force. This negative force is called friction force. So what is the meaning of the friction force? It is the force between two surfaces in contact or interact each other between the bicycle and between the road that acts in a direction opposite to the direction of motion. What does that mean? The only thing that move in the direction of the motion is the bicycle, but the road moves in the opposite direction of the motion, which is the negative force, causes the object to slow down and stop. How can it slow down and how can it stop? When you ride a bike and push its pedal, the bike is moving forward, as we said, in the direction of the motion. This bike, when it moves in the direction of the motion, so we can call it is under the force of the pedal. It's called driving force. But when you stop pedaling during the movement of the bike slows down until it stops by a force called the friction force. This friction force happens between the rubber tire of the bicycle and the ground surface or the road. The friction force acts in the opposite direction of the motion. Based on that, the friction force increases as it becomes bigger than the driving force. It means that the negative force is bigger than the positive force. We have many types of friction force, like friction between solid objects and air, and solid objects and water. Firstly, friction between solid objects, like the friction between rubber ball, as it's a solid object, and the floor of the playground, and it is a solid object too. The friction between rubber tire of the bicycle and the road. Rubber tire of the bicycle is a solid object and the road is a solid object too. The friction between rubber tire of the car, as it is a solid object, and the road, as it is a solid object too. Secondly, the friction between solid objects and air. We can call it air resistance. It is a type of friction force resulting from movement of an object through the air. The last one is the friction between solid objects and water. It is the type of friction force resulting from the movement of an object like the ship through the water. Now we have many factors affecting the friction force. The first one is the type of the surface material. The first one is a rough surface, like the sand. When I have an object moves in the sand, it will move small distance. But if I have object moving smooth surface like glass, it will move big distance. For example, in the rough surface, if I have a small rubber ball rolling a sandy floor of the playground, the rubber ball cuts short distance and stop moving after a short time because the surface is rough. But in case of smooth surface, when a ball rolls in a smooth floor as the bowling ball, the ball cuts long distance and stop moving after a long time because the surface is smooth. The second effect is the speed of the body. The relation between the speed of the body and the friction force is direct relation. In case of the slow object, if we decrease the speed of an object, the friction force decreases. But in case of fast object, if we increase the speed of an object, the friction force increases. I cannot understand. How can I decrease the speed of an object and the friction force decrease too? In the same way, if I increase the speed, the friction force increase too. Let me remind you the action-reaction that I have two bodies, body A and body B. In body A, it moves in the direction of the motion, so it will be positive force. And in body B, it moves in the opposite direction, and we call it negative force. And at the end, we said that negative force is equal to the positive force. When I say that I will increase the motion of something or I will increase the speed of something, that means that the positive force will increase. Because of the positive force increase, the negative force will increase too, because it's equal to the positive force. And we said, who is the negative force? Excellent. The negative force is the friction force. So when I increase the speed, the friction force will increase too. Why? Because positive force is equal to negative force. When you run fast in open air, based on that, the positive force will increase. That means the speed will increase. That means the motion will increase. Based on that, friction force too will increase. The negative force will increase. In the same way, when you ride a bicycle at a high speed, that means positive force will increase. Based on that, negative force will increase, so the friction force will increase. When a car moves at a high speed, that means that the friction force increase because of the speed increase. In the same way, when a car moves at a low speed, that means the positive force is small and the speed is small. What does that mean? That means the positive force is small. The positive force equal to the negative force. So the negative force is small too. So friction force will be small. The third effect is the surface area of the moving object. The relation between the surface area of the body and the friction force is direct relation. In case of large surface area, if we increase the surface area, the friction force increases. But in case of small surface area, if we decrease the surface area, the friction force decreases. What does that mean? I cannot understand. Let's see an examples. Firstly, examples on a small surface area. Train and rocks and aircrafts are designed in streamlined shapes. Why? To decrease the surface area of an object exposed to the air. Based on that, friction force or air resistance decrease and speeds up. Another one, birds have streamlined shapes. This bird has streamlined beak. Why? To decrease the surface area exposed to the air. Based on that, friction force or air resistance decreases and speeds up. Another one, in fish or dolphin have streamlined shapes too. Why? To decrease the surface area exposed to the water. Based on that, friction force or water resistance decreases and swims so easy and so fast. Another one, ships are designed in streamlined shapes. Why? To decrease the surface area exposed to the water. Based on that, friction force or water resistance decreases and moves so easy and so fast. Birds or bats stretch their wings on landing. Why? To increase the surface area of that exposed to the air. Based on that, friction force or air resistance increase, so landing speed will decrease.